If you're thinking about should you ask for seller concessions or not, what the benefit might be, perhaps why wouldn't you ask for it? You would consider it as additional money to cover cost at closing on your behalf for your benefit. Yeah. So sometimes, depending, what we think about is this: how much does the lender say you'll need at closing? As a buyer, how much will you need to close on the home in 3 or 4 weeks? If that number stops at 5,000 and we're asking for 10, we've just offended the seller and insulted them, and they've gotten in their feelings only to just give us a hard time the remaining journey, right? The rest of the way. Why? Is it worth it? And if we know that 5,000 or 2,000 or 30 is what we need, we can go in and play our hands accordingly if we understand the need. So always when we're thinking about seller concessions, oftentimes we're thinking about it during the option period after the inspection. And you're like, I don't trust them to fix the things. I'll fix it. Just pay my closing costs. Let me keep my money in my pocket that I would have otherwise brought to closing, and I'll do it after closing. But that's a good chance. There's a good chance that during the option period you're thinking about this. How much should the seller contribute toward my costs for whatever reason? Because I need it. I need it towards repairs. I need to buy down my rate just because I want to feel like I got a good deal. There are people that way. So you just have to think about what amount the lender says and if it's worth the ask in the moment, because there is a journey ahead of us that is, whew, it goes into a few different steps. And sometimes we have to go to the seller and ask for a favor. And if that seller is already upset because of that initial request, they will have nothing else to say aside from no the remaining part of the way. And especially if they have a backup offer. If they have a backup offer, which they don't have to disclose necessarily to us, they'll say no for everything. And they're looking for a reason to say no. So sometimes that gives them the reason. They'll say no for everything so that you run away since they don't have the out you do as a buyer. They'll say no. They hope you run away so they can go with the offer they really want that came in after the offer was executed that we have. So just keep that in mind. Seller concessions, is it worth it? Is it not? At what point? There are other times throughout the contract that we will need to revisit concessions. Let's say the seller said, yes, we'll give you 10,000, 5,000, 1,500, whatever it is in lieu of repairs, or just because maybe it was a negotiation out of the ball game, right out of the gate, which said, "Hey, seller, can you give us this because of the house been being on the market a little bit?" Maybe they said, "Yeah, who knows?" But for whatever reason, those concessions are oftentimes revisited when the appraiser comes out, he or she, to confirm and verify and validate the value that we're in contract for. Case in point, we're in contract for 300,000. Appraiser goes out during this process, the appraisal process, and says, "I don't think it's worth 300. I think it's worth 290." That's a $10,000 difference. Something has to happen. As a buyer, you have options. You can walk away and say, "Hey, depends on the contract the way it's written." But default way, if you're just using the traditional promulgated contracts as they're written now, and you've not added an addendum that says you're willing to cover this, most times you have these out generally, right? One being, "Hey, seller, can you come down? Want to negotiate them down, or I'll meet you halfway." Or some people say, "I'll pay the difference in cash because I got to live here. All my family lives around me and I want to be by them." So that's the thing. You could pay the cash difference, renegotiate with the seller, or walk. You could walk away and say, "Give me my earnest money back. I'm out." And so again, aside from any addendums you would have perhaps added to the contract, you should be covered to do one or three of those things, options, one or three of those options. Now, seller has to sign off on the earnest release. Both parties, all parties to contracts, have to sign off on the release, or else that's another process that we would talk through. But just understand that is a time in which you can request the earnest funds back. It should not appraise. Now, most times, tying that into my point, if we had a low appraisal come in and the seller knows they're giving you 10 or they're giving you 5 of it, they're likely going to ask for that to be reassessed because these are real dollars coming out of the seller's pockets. At closing, if they would have otherwise gotten 50,000, they may be getting 40,000 because they offered to give you 10. And now listen, you're coming in 10 undervalued. That's an additional 10 off. So sellers truly will say either, "Hey, listen, I don't want to do that because I'm not getting a good deal and this is not a win-win," or, "I can't afford to do that. I have these 10 things I got to pay off, these 50 things I have to pay off, or I need this deposit for my next home, and I cannot afford to give you a lower payment, a concession, and a lower price because that hurts them a little differently than it might the buyer." So everything we do has to be a win-win. And with all integrity, I share these things so you're aware of what's ahead and how to maybe go about your thought process around this in your heart space. It is more about making it to the end. Most people get in real estate transactions, they never close because of feelings. Believe it or not, because of feelings. So if we're educated and we're smart and we're aware of how the process works and perhaps what's ahead, we know how not to offend the seller so easily. at an emotional time. They may be selling for a death, they may be selling for a life, they may be selling for, who knows, change of job, good or bad. So we have to certainly consider all angles as we approach things. And you win more bees with honey, not vinegar. Alrighty, go be great, go be amazing, and ask any questions you have. I simply wanted to talk through the seller concession piece and help you to understand how that might be beneficial or maybe not. Okay, we'll talk soon.